film class. This one is called Women Poets at the Turn of the Century. This is the film class. Documentaries capture the present for the future, so it cannot be erased by an opportunistic future. Women poets and some watercolors from my Goddess series, also from the turn of the century. These are some women poets from the turn of the century before George Bush declared that anyone asking for peace in the United States was helping terrorists who'd done 9/11, the taking down of the World Trade Center, while he began the American wars in the Middle East. It was the end of free speech. Amy Uzonian, Diane Burns, Susan Yang, Eve Packer are the women poets featured here. And a reading from some women poets from Steve Cannon's poetry group called The Gathering of the Tribes.
Pertaining to that, to our president, Bill Clinton. I mentioned him. Because, there you go. Because I can. On opening the New York Times, March 30th, 1998. Page 6 of the International News, screening slit eyes for a NATO continued. She stared at me again. Through faces of young men in wool Russian caps, leaning against voting booths and the difference between 8.7 million and only 8. Page 6 turns to 9, the perfect marriage. Clinton says to Armenia, "Baby, I'll provide for you. I'll be the best man you've ever seen." Meanwhile, he turns his back to tell the same story to Azerbaijan enemy regime. Convoluted conversations in back of Turkish-owned post offices, recorded and filed under irrevocable truth in the Ottoman Army's cabinet. And the truth is, by the time history books try to find my roots, they will have been lifted. People in New York City still think that Azerbaijan is an Indian desert, if they've ever heard the name at all. Political commentary lies within easy entry for administration's orifice, searching inside white walls for twat, cunt, and bitch put out. Armenians, Georgians, Musavalgians, and my grandfather will not wear their past on their fingertips. But I wouldn't throw it away for a fucking 0.7 million. So anyway,
So I have total respect for young people, human beings, because I know when I was 14 and 15, I was just as mean as you are now.
I'm mean?
Well, you know.
Yeah, I am mean.
I'm
a mean, nasty bitch. Don't get near me.
As able to understand and deal with and be attracted to and have, you know, the whole stuff going on. You know, I don't consider. See, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened was that after media showed up, there were no more children in life. I mean, when television showed up, you know, kids who had been very nice people, all of a sudden learned about guns, learned about killing, learned about all of the atrociousness that life.
And now I'm putting that element back into television, back into your show. The element of violence with words. Yeah.
I don't know. John Farris did the job with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
That Mike Tyson poem, the cannibalism poem, that whole thing. He would really, I mean.
I do a lot of sex poems because I believe make love, not war.
Do you really?
I'm not a fucking hippie.
You look like a hippie.
I look like Janis Joplin, but that's only because it's comfortable. I don't feel like being tight ass.
Yeah.
I'm only tight ass when, you know, my work.
When your DJ shows up and says,
my personality's tight ass, but not my clothes. People I can't fucking stand. I'll set up readings for people I can't stand, but if their work is kick ass, then I'm gonna have them read. I might be pissed off as all hell at someone and still publish their work.
So are you a publisher? Are you a set-up reading?
Well, I have.
What have you been doing?
I have published people's stuff in journals that I was working on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, smaller than Tribes before in the past, and I'm editing an anthology, you know, right now, and I might get really, really pissed off at any of these girls who are in this anthology called Skyscrapers, Taxis, and Tampax.
Which I will be shooting.
Yeah.
When is it?
This Sunday.
This Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, 5 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I might get pissed off as all hell at these girls, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna pull out their work. If they're
Sunday night featured reading, and tonight is going to be Skyscrapers, Taxis, and Tampax.
Yeah!
All right. And we are going to have 7 illustrious, beautiful New York City poet women coming up to read. And they're all going to be in the anthology published by Fly By Night Press and Genesis Press to be coming out in February. All right? Yeah. Okay, so tonight, the first reader that we're going to have come up to read, I met her through the Rogue Scholars, and yeah, Rogue Scholars! And she was one of the many that came to gather in the Tribes Gallery where I work to read to Steve Cannon and myself and put together their anthology. And I don't know, about 5 or 6 months ago. So, please welcome up to the stage, Miriam Stanley!
Yeah.
Hi. How are you? I'm fine. I'm talking to that thing.
Oh, hi.
It's the only way I can deal with it. Okay. I'm going to start off with my latest piece that people have heard like last week, but I'll start off with my most recent. The Jehovah's Witnesses. You could clap.
Yay!
Clutching their children, smiling at addicts, standing in the hot sun saying thank you for the 100th rejection today. Covering the streets in July, August, January, the Bronx. Being gaped at by hookers. Each house, each doorbell, each cold glare thrown by woken drunks, girls in spandex, women in lycra, old men squinting through lock screens, each pit bull straining its chains to their jaw. Through Brooklyn, Manhattan, Tony streams of smug yuppies, past Hasidim equal in fervor and mothers looking for kids. Past methadone clinics and old Catholics speaking Polish. Up by bodegas owned by Muslims in Flatbush Avenue and down by Clarkson. Standing in the bright air like so many splinters, standing by the customers looking for lotto, whispering, "Would you like to read?" So haltingly, never saying who they'd send to hell. If only they loved me, if only they loved more, if only they loved. I would wear God over my miniskirt. I would wear God as a blindfold. I would wear God to cover the sight of downsized lovers, aged women, feminists aching in bars, and sexton wits eclipsed by models. I would wash God over the world's sidewalk. I would, if only.
I'm gonna read one anyway, and you know what? It's gonna be about sex, okay? Not really.
You're having fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
This scene opens with 8-year-old stickball players festering off fire escapes, firing emblazed over kerchiefs, and old mamas carting home groceries from fine and fair, from projects to prairies. This scene leaps from Loisaida between 3rd and 4th Avenue, or 3rd and 4th Street, Avenue D, into East 3rd. Let me start again. Okay. This scene opens with 8-year-old stickball players festering off fire escapes, firing emblazed over kerchiefs, and old mamas carting home groceries from fine and fair, from projects to prairies. This scene leaps from Loisaida between East 3rd and 4th Street, Avenue D, into 3 Glen Street, Warwick, New York, zip code 10990. In this field trip, dreams hug this treehouse. Here are the 8-year-old teammates, below are their hot dogs, loose of their rolls, mingling with the backyard lawn, so forgotten. Its hippie hair dyed green and punkish, grass standing too tall to fit ladder rung. These are their picture magazines, titties hanging from corner lips of slick pages, grin at long firm meat void of manipulated bread. Loitering around this tree trunks, swinging rope, climbing to an unlit boys' ballroom, where secrets, aging insect eyes peek through paranoid keyboards and mire. Legs, neck, legs, chest, legs, shoulder blades, legs, navel, legs, arms, legs, spine, legs, lips, expanding, pouring, morning glory and stinging maple like one. Wants and itchy, curious needs that wave silkworm fingers as shuddering man flares pink.
Yeah. Okay, isn't she just the best? Fabulous! Alright, so I hope that all of you, enjoyed that, and, and that you're getting drinks at the bar or whatever, maybe during intermission, yes? Okay. Alright, so the next three are going to have come up. She's with the Rogue Scholars as well, which is a poetry group. Yeah, consisting of, God, how many people do you have? I don't even count anymore. Well, I mean, I know how many. I know all of you. Yeah.
8 were
Okay. 12. And then some, like, out there and on another planet, I'm sure. Yeah, so, all right, so welcome up to the stage, Megan Williams.
An oldie. If we want to put it that way. There is an art separate of masturbation. The words have no layer of flesh to feel the hands, almost second-hand, but they wrapped around them. Tips of fingers around sensitive nerves, tips of tongues. The words I would use to describe a form of abstraction ride me. The words enter me, howling doggy style. The words pump as if beaten by hormone natural process deep into me. The words work themselves around my body, occasionally end up in my mouth, and I choke on puns, confused as to whether I should blow or suck. Analogies get caught in my windpipe. I swallow, choke on words creating suction, vacuum. These words aren't mine. These words are only the description of a homologous structure, and I am a vegetarian. I won't eat them. They penetrate me the way I could never penetrate myself.
My nails?
Clipping your nails, all right.
Okay. My toenails. Ooh,
Yes,
that'd
sure.
be nasty. Ooh, showing nudity of my toes. Nudity of my fingers.
Yeah, right?
Let's just get nude.
And you know what's really weird?
Just get naked.
Under all our clothes, we really are all nude.
Really?
Yeah.
Not me.
Please welcome to the stage the revolutionary poets for New York City to contend with now, Stacy Ann Chin.
If only out of vanity I have wondered what kind of woman I will be when I am well past the summer of my raging youth. Will I still be raising revolutionary flags and making impassioned speeches that stir up anger in the hearts of pseudo-liberals dressed in navy blue conservative wear? In those years, when I am grateful I still have a good sturdy bladder that does not leak undigested prune juice onto diapers no longer adorable, will I be more grateful for that than for any forward movement in any current political cause? And will it have been worth it then? Will it have been worth the long hours of not sleeping that produced little more than reams of badly written verses that catapulted me into literary spasms, but did not even whet the appetite of the 3 o'clock crowd in the least respected of the New York poetry cafes? Will I wish then that I had taken that job working at the bank, or the one to watch that old lady drool all over her soft-boiled eggs as she tells me how she was a radiant beauty in the 60s, how she could have had any man she wanted, but she chose the one least likely to succeed, and that's why when the son of a bitch died, she had to move into this place because it was government subsidized. Will I be the only bald-headed old broad who does not wear an expensive wig, but pays my girl $2 extra to shave my patchy dandruff-riddled scalp with the cheap razors I can only afford from the 99-cent store across the street? Will I smile at my young home attendant, telling her how slender I was then, paint pictures of the young me more beautiful than I ever was, if only to make her forget the shriveled paper skin, the stained but even denser plates, and the faint smell of urine that tends to linger in places built especially for revolutionaries whose causes have been won or forgotten? Will the staff smile at me, saying, humor my eccentricities to my face, saying I must have been something in my day? Most days I don't know what I will be like then, but every day I know what I want to be now. I want to be the voice that makes Giuliani so scared he hires 2 butch bodyguards. I want to write the poem that the New York Times cannot print because it might start some kind of lesbian or black or even a white revolution. I want to go to secret meetings with black coffee and cheap paper cups and under the guise of female friendship. I want to bed the wives of those young and eager revolutionaries with too much zeal for their cause and too little passion for the beautiful bodies that follow them from city to city, all the while waiting in separate rooms. I want to be 40 years old and weigh 300 pounds and ride a motorcycle in the wintertime. I want to, with 4 hell-raising children and a 110-pound lover who writes poetry about my life and my children and loves me like no one has ever loved me before. I want to be the girl your parents will use as a bad example of a lady. I want to be the poet who never rhymes. I want to be the dyke who likes to fuck men. I want to be that politician who never lies. I want to be the girl who never cries. I want to go down in history in a chapter marked miscellaneous because the writers could find no other way to categorize me. In this world where classification is key, I want to erase the straight lines and just be me.
Yeah. Like the part of just being taught that that no matter how much how much redemption you seek, you're never really truly redeemed for your sins. Like you can pray and pray and pray. You never feel like it's lifted. Catholics have it good that way. Jews have it really, really bad that way. You know, it's like your sins are never really lifted, you know? And, like, you can think, yeah, you know, I'm rid of this sin, this bad thing I've done.
Welcome to the stage, Eileen Reyes.
Poets and who is wise enough to decide to be a poet, although having meaning with no form, has taken this combobulated shape. Being a poet means you can get attention by reading something while letting your arms flail profusely as though you were flapping a set of wings right after being pushed outside the nest for the very first time. Very little pertinent information. Fuck it, be a poet or just look like one. It's so easy. You too can be a fascist, cutthroat, know-nothing, and still have the ability to soil some other uncultivated mind with the lengthy, over-preachy, grandiose campaign speech about the splendor of your race and its superior qualities over the others of those listening, while slipping in insults about the pigment in their skin, the texture of their hair, and the manner by which they speak, and they will still clap in approval. It's the end of the century. Fuck it. Be a poet, because now it means you can walk around sucking the air out of everyone's ass like a Hoover Electric, no matter who they be, while simultaneously shoving neon-colored business cards in their face, having your name in block letters next to a pretentious title for yourself, followed by your work number, your home phone number, your voicemail, your pager, and if you have enough room in the card and you kiss enough ass on your time, your cell phone number too. Let's all be poets. Why not? It's a fucking trend. And if you consider yourself one, you have the honor of walking around, nose stuck in the air, shoulders held back straight, while your cranium expands with schemes of how to beat out real poets at poetry slams so that you can win a diminutive amount of cash to be able to afford a petty dosage of your choicest stimulant for you and whatever garish whore you like to catch the newest STD from. You too can be a poet. Everybody else is doing it, and who says you got to be literate? If you got enough fat in your testicles or estrogen in your cycle, you can glide your non-writing ass on a stage and talk shit about some slut you never laid, because she wouldn't give you the time of day or night. Then when all else fails and you said your full vocabulary of 36 words, you can start mispronouncing words you wouldn't even be able to sound out. Then randomly insert some brainless humming into it while you try to think of something witty to say to end your piece with. Are you an actress out of work, a singer with no guitar, or just a nobody who wants to be a star? Damn it, be a poet. All you need is a pen. Is this what it's about? Who are the real poets, and why do the numbers get to decide? Is it about being a racist, vainglorious, soprano, butt-sucking, motherfucking, spoken word bullshit artist? Because if it is, I guess I'll never be a real poet.
Finished with that? No.
She will never be finished with her mother.
Man, it's like sex and my mother. It's the only two things I really can write about lately. My mother right now.
All right.
You nasty little bitch, get the fuck out of the city and stop sleeping around with those men.
Who said that?
Steve Kennett, my mother. Steve to have some time sometime, you know, to go into like the churches around here. Not those Spanish churches. I'm not talking about that. Why don't you find a nice gospel church or something like that to go
There's
to?
a gospel next door.
Really? This was not intended for, you know, for the purpose of myself to get up here and read it all. I'm just, you know, merely here. But I'm gonna read uno poem, all right? Actually, it's right down there. Forget it. All right. I'll read one poem. It's called "This Scene Opens." This scene opens with 8-year-old stickball players festering off fire escapes, firing and glazed over kerchiefs and carting home groceries with old mamas from Find and Fair, from projects to prairies. This scene leaps from Loisaida between East 3rd and 4th Street on Avenue D into 3 Glen Street, Warwick, zip code 10990. In this field trip, dreams hug this treehouse. Here are 8-year-old teammates. Below are their hot dogs, loose of their rolls, mingling with a backyard lawn, so forgotten. Its hippie hair dyed green and pukish, standing to the 5th ladder rung. And these are their picture magazines. Titties hanging from corner lips of slick pages, grinning at long firm meat void of manipulated bread. Loitering around this trunk swinging rope, climbing to an unlit boys' ballroom where secret agent insect eyes peek through paranoid keyholes and admire. Legs, necks, legs, chest, legs, shoulder blades, legs, navel, legs, arms, legs, spine, legs, lips, expanding, pouring, morning glory and stingy maple like rum wants and itching curious needs that wave a single silkworm finger as shuddering manflowers faint. Boys calling, dinner's done, ready to come. All right, but again, this is far from about me, and the next poet who's going to come.
Theory about poetry.
My theory about poetry. Well, I think that poetry is a lot about evoking feelings from other people. Like, you know, telling, you know, like, it's very much of a magic act kind of thing. It's not about expressing yourself. I mean, that's so self-indulgent, you know? I think that poetry is about inventing and reinventing language from the language that we already have, you know, put in front of us. Like, these are the tools that you're given. You're given, like, language, like different languages, so many different languages. And given that, then you either structure language to sound different, or you put it into a new text, you know? And like, I mean, a lot of poets, they think that they're poets when they're like talking about themselves and telling people, you know, a lot of angst-ridden shit, you know, like, and it's like everybody's felt sorrow, everybody's felt happiness, everybody's felt love, but there's not a lot of people out there that go into a reading and can feel love from hearing a poem, or feel happiness or sorrow. And if you read a really, really great poem that talks about, like, you know, that like talks about showing someone a scene, you know, It's all about showing somebody a scene. Like, you know, I read a poem and I only hope that somebody tells me, like, I really felt that, I really saw that, you know, rather than them just being like, hey man, what you were saying up there was really, you know, cool, because it's not what I'm saying, it's what you're feeling. You know, that's what it's about. I mean, I don't go to a reading to hear myself read. I go to a reading for other people to hear me read. I write for other people. I don't write for myself. You know?
I've been here a long time. That's all I'm going to say about it.
And why do you stay?
I think there's a certain amount of inertia involved, but also I love the idea of when I was a kid, you know, I'd go to the rodeo and the circus.
Mhm.
I was like, boy, wouldn't it be fun to live there, you know, live with the rodeo, live in the circus. In New York, I always have this constant feeling that whenever I want, I can just walk outside the door, and there I am. I'm in the middle of the circus, middle of the parade. Louis-Side Serenade. Once they built the railroad, the buffalo split past the horizon line. Once they built the railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you front me a dime? I'm down and out in Low-East-Side. I'm out of smoke in Low-East-Side. I'm out of tea in Low-East-Side. I'm out of luck, I'm out of my mind, all at the same time in Low-East-Side. Oh, East Village, I. I'm American royalty, walking around with a hole in my knee. I'm a hopeful aborigine, trying to find a place to be. Oh, East Village, I. Back home now, I'd be at the powwow. I'd be drinking herb tea and eating deer meat. Maybe smooching in a blanket with a pot of water, me. But here I am on Avenue D, a sacrifice, a manifest destiny. Oh, East Village, I'm not your stepping stone. Hey man, can you spare a cigarette? Do you know of a place to sublet? Do you know where I can cash this check? Do you know that? Do you know that? I hate Doris Day. I hate Chevrolet. I hate Norman Bates, and I'm still at war with the United States. Oh, East Village, East Village, You want to talk to me about gentrification? So you want to hear one of my top 40 poems? Okay. I don't care if you're married, I still love you. I don't care if you're married when the party's over. I will take you home in my one-eyed Ford, way-ah-hi-ah, way-ah-hi-oh. Modine, the roller derby queen, she's an Anishinaabe, that means human being. That's H for hungry, that's B for frijoles, fry bread, tortillas, watermelon, pomona. Take a sip of this or a drag of that at the Rancheria Fiesta. It's tit for tat. Lowriders and Levi's go fist in glove. Give it a little pat, a push or a shove. Move it or lose it. Talk straight or bruise it. Everyone has their fun. When the sun is all done, we're all one. Make a run. Hide your gun. Hey, I'm no nun. 49 in the hills above Ventura. Them Okies got a drum. I'm from Oklahoma. I got no one to call my own. If you will be my honey, I will be your sugar pie. Way high, way high, way high. We're gonna sing all night. Bring your blanket or be that way then.
So what is poetry to you?
Well, I first started writing poetry when I had been writing in college, doing like newspaper articles or book reviews, and someone called up the American Indian Community House and said, do you have any American Indian women poets, because we're having a women's poetry series and we don't have any Indians, so we need an Indian. So they said, well, Diane writes. So they called me up and said they'll pay you $50 for a poetry reading. So I said, okay, and I wrote some poetry that night. Next day I went to the poetry reading, and I started off right up there. It was Audre Lorde was there, everybody. It was like the top ranks. And I'd just written this poetry the first night, like the night before. So actually, I'm the only poet I know who got into the field for money. And hopefully I will continue to make money and write poetry. But that's up to my audience.
Why is it up to the audience?
Well, as long as they give me money, I'll write poetry and they'll be happy.
Oh, you believe that? You believe that?
Certainly,
Well, I
certainly.
know you're an artist. I checked you out with Steve Cannon. He says you're a famous Native American artist whose works is collected in museums and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was once on the cover of Shooter's Bible.
What?
Shooter's Bible is like a gun cap.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You were on it? You mean one of your art pieces was on it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Not Diane Burns. I don't know. You know what they're doing with Shooters magazines now? They put in women in cutaway fatigues with major weapons, you know.
Oh, like the biker magazine.
Just like the biker magazines, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm afraid they're cutting out
A little
whole market of women who own weapons and ride bikes.
No, for the men, though.
Uh-huh.
You know, I guess it's... But, I mean, there's a woman, and she's in a bikini, or less, with a 50 caliber sniper rifle, you know. Standing by this extreme weapon, an assault, something or other, you know, that if it ever showed up here would completely decimate.
Right, you could chop down trees with that kind of rifle.
Yeah. So I could have seen Diane Burns and Shooter's Bible doing.
I did a kind of a Bonnie and Clyde thing where I was getting out of like a 30s model car, you know, dressed up as Sacagawea or something. With
Who?
some Jane Indian kind of old time portrayal. Anyway, I had a mess of guns.
Well, you're a Western woman, right?
Yeah. Yep, grew up with guns. In fact, I think it's important for people to realize that we should all have a way of defending ourselves, not only against the bad guys, but the bad guys that the good guys say are bad guys, which may be the good guys. You know, we should always have our technology on our side, whatever side that is. Foods that are Indian: potatoes, tomatoes, corn, blueberries, strawberries, cranberries, chili, beans, coffee, potato chips, popcorn, tortilla, bubble gum, spaghetti sauce, ketchup, french fries, jam, chocolate, clams, lobster, maple syrup, wild rice, acorns, avocado, banana, buffalo, turkey, pumpkin, squash, peanuts, pinoli nuts, and cocoa. These are all the foods that are from the Americas. People don't realize that the first bioengineers were Native Americans.
Your nose is all wet.
Yeah, I sweat a lot from my nose.
You're a nose sweater.
Yeah, I should have brought my compact down with me. Oh, I got a napkin anyway.
Are you a nose sweater? Is that what you are? Wow.
Yes, I have little beads. I think it's an Indian thing, you know, because I've known a lot of Indians have little beads on their sides of their nose.
I rarely notice things like that, but...
Well, you have to, being focused in the way you are, yeah.
Yeah, you're very glamorous. Wow. Shame on you.
Oh, let's see.
This one.
Uh-huh. Oh, we were talking about Marilyn Monroe. Janis Joplin had a bitter little joke she used to say before she had to go on stage. I gotta go put on Janis Joplin now. She's upstairs in a box. Right now I'm writing a series of stories about it's called Headlock, Turnbuckle, and Dropkick, Attorneys at Law. And it's going to be like a series where a bunch of lawyers who were formerly professional wrestlers save their clients. I I can see myself in there a little bit. Try not to get my teeth, or what's left of them.
Oh, you've got those leftover teeth.
Yep. In Inwood, in the spring, up by the cloisters, you can hear the Canadian geese flying home. They're honking right over Manhattan Island. Always makes me feel like they're lost. Flying over year after year, decade on decade, century by century. It's really just another island to set their sights on, to lay a course by when you have so far to go. So long. Bye-bye. There must be a reason. I had a little blue horse and a great big blue dog. They were the same shade of gunmetal silver. The horse was supposed to be half Arabian. Well, the date was set with a stud with papers going back to the Godolphin and the Barley Turk, but her damn mother slipped the fence a day early and run off with Smokey, a blue roan Mustang, notorious in those times for seducing mares for his harem. He had a big Roman-nosed head, black where he should have been white and white where he should have been black. Long, hairy fetlocks and hooves that curled up like a jester's toes from never being shoed. He had a long, wicked scar on his neck from an unsuccessful creaser. Now, let me explain. A Mustang is a wild horse owned by nobody, a free horse, not just spiritually, but economically. As long as he's running through your property, eating your grass, knocking up your stock, a rancher may feel that even if breaking a wild horse to cow pony isn't feasible, extra breeding stock may be some gain. And some rancher with a steady rifle arm may think it worthwhile to try creasing. See, if you send a rifle slug through the neck, right above the withers, just right, you can stun an animal off its feet for, maybe 10 minutes or so. You could possibly bulldog hobble the beast before he comes to and stomps you into the prairie. And even if you miss, penny a pound isn't a total loss as dog food. Anyway, when her damn mother dropped her a year later, it was obvious her sire was no racehorse. She bit, she kicked. I had to mount her near the shoulder with the stirrup turned frontward and the off-rein tight to the pommel. She'd buck like a sunfish and try to scrape me off on a tree. Her coat would make an LSD tripper go stark raving mad as carnival kaleidoscope of blue, gray, brown, silver, black where she should have been white and white where she should have been black. And since my train of thought trails a little blue caboose, a guitar player said to me, "Hey, watch my dog for a week. I got a gig out of town." And that's how, for 7 years, I had a blue Great Dane for a week.
Wait a second.
Yeah?
You went from a horse to a Great Dane?
Yep.
How'd you do that?
Just, karma, I suppose.
Just split from the horse. That horse is a very interesting story.
You want to hear about, maple sugaring? Okay, let me get in the light. How about if you stand over here so we don't get the garbage?
No, I would. Okay.
Yeah? Or, you know, when I was modeling, I had to do a whole bunch of shots with garbage and graffiti behind me. They said it makes you look better. Maple sugaring in Aunt Alberta's backyard. Spring trees sing and the sky looks like it would squeak if you ran a fingernail across it. I hitch a pack to a wood sled and we go into the bush, hauling clear green maple sap rising through the trees, tipping little birch bark baskets into a bucket, tree to tree to tree, keep wrecks from peeing on each tree. Grandpa and Uncle Waynaboojoo burn through the young veins of branches, of twigs with a hot coat hanger, whittles the ends to poke into the maple tree bark and hit the main line of clear green sap, while it dribbles down into the little birch bark basket. Tip bucket into the iron cauldron which hangs above the fire. Boil, boil, stir with a long wooden spoon, stir, stir until you're choked with smoke. boil, boil until the sap gets brown and the waves stand up nearly solid. Aunt Alberta watches scowling from the kitchen window. Stir, stir, stir with a long wooden spoon. Cousins always show up then. Give me some, why don't you? I can stir, Cousin Dowie says, and I lift her, long wooden spoon in her tiny hands, tongue between teeth, eyes watering. She stirs till I let her down. I can stir more, she says. You're too heavy, I say, and casually let the spoon drip syrup over the edge of the kettle while the little ones scramble for drops in the snow. Keep an eye on that kitchen window. Look, are those butterflies? Catch me one, okay? They pelt off to the edge of the woods while I stir hard and quick, hoping the syrup hasn't burned. Aunt Alberta comes out, flaps her apron at the smoke, and says, well, I suppose if you stirred any slower, we could just chop it up and sprinkle it on our Johnny cakes. She takes the spoon and dribbles it over the snow, and we both eat some. Do you know how to make Johnny cakes, she asks me. If you come here tomorrow early, I'll teach you. And I feel as big as trees must feel when they all sing together in the spring. No, I did like book covers for like romantic novels and gothics and westerns and scary books and romantic books, and I was always running from the 7th Cavalry, but
Really?
yeah, and they dressed me up in like different outfits. I think I was in Reader's Digest a couple of times, and
Did you save the tear sheets?
I had one in my, I had a bunch in my portfolio, but that's all gone now,
Yeah, I
unfortunately.
know. They get lost.
But one time I was in, start shooting. One time I was in the subway, and a book I had been a model for, it had my picture on the book cover, right? So they were advertising the book in the subway, and all around me, all over the subway, were like advertisements for that book. And I was all by myself in the subway, and I'm looking at myself all over the place, and this one guy gets into the subway, the doors close, it's real quiet, we're racketing around, you know, going wherever we're going, and finally comes up and comes over to me and says, excuse me, ma'am, but I think I recognize you. And I'm like, yeah. He says, aren't you Yoko Ono? And I said, yeah, I am. In fact, me and Sean got stuck. We need $20. The limo broke down. Why don't you lend it to me and I'll leave it at the Dakota for you? Sure.
Oh, Yoko's gonna love that. He deserved it, right? There you were in all your glory.
Surrounding him, yeah.
Yeah. And all he could see was Yoko.
Right.
So that makes you Japanese too.
Right. Well, I used to work in a Japanese nightclub, you know, singing and dancing and pouring Scotch whiskey for the executives at Yamaha and Sony. In New York, yeah. There's about 200, 300 clubs in New York, just like in Japan. They're private clubs. It's sort of like a library for Scotch, because they have like all these shelves and cabinets full of bottles of Scotch and numbers. And when the member comes in, he takes his own bottle out of like the library, brings it to a table, and then like the hostesses, which was what I was doing, would come and sit with him, pour the Scotch, light the cigarettes, would sing karaoke and dance and, you know, goof around like that. Tell funny stories, play stupid games.
We already attacked poetry.
All right,
You know,
yeah.
I already know that you are the voice of the unspoken.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Voice of the unspoken, and then voice of the spoken.
The voiceless.
Voices. Voice of the mumblers.
The voice of the mumblers.
Voice
Sounds
of the
good to me.
mumblers, yeah. The asides, the under-the-breath stuff people would love to say but can't bear to say.
Don't dare to say.
Can't afford to say, yeah. Because it comes down to that. It's like stuff you would say to yourself, you know. The great things you'd love to say to people but can't.
Well, let me see, what's a good question for you? We already covered what is poetry, right? And, do you think poetry has a use? Pick up the mic.
Does poetry have a use? Well, what's the use of me or that mountain or that tree? Everything has a use. Our function as poets is to translate from that tree to maybe the mountain, or from the mountain to you, or the mountain to me. That's our function. Our use, perhaps, is something different. I mean, who is using and who's being used here? If I look at a mountain, do I use it? If I listen to the poet, am I being used? Clear, clean, still, the desert just before dawn is an alert time, yet drowsy with night predators clocking out. The horizon line is pencil sharp, edged with pink and gold, bottomless deep blue of the sky, still pierced with late night stars wheeling down below the earth. The saguaro stands so straight and tall, so old and wise, not judgmental like an oak tree, for example, perhaps because its observations are endless, uninterrupted by winter sleep. The chala and the jumping cactus lurk shy as 8-year-old boys along the trail ready to jump out at you. The earth glitters with mica, quartz, gold, silver, pyrites winking in the light. Particles, dust motes, pollen, motes and mites dance and flutter in the horizontal beam of sunlight. Jackrabbits hush and fold their ears down over their black shiny eyes. Roadrunners rest and roost, their nervous prancing paused for the moment. Hawks and vultures wheel above, soaring on rolling funnels of hot air rising. Agate eyes scan for late homecomers and early risers or night-injured prey. Half Hopi and half Chumash, she had no clan because her father was Hopi, and the Hopis passed the clan down through the mother. Her mother was Chumash, and they traced clan through the father's side. I knew another half Hopi in New York City. The other half was Seneca. He had false face carvings and kachinas, but he couldn't keep them in the same room. They'd fight each other all night. He'd get up in the morning, and the living room would be a shambles, everything pulled from the shelves and off the walls. And the note of music hung in the air like a trembling drop of hot amber.
Is that a true story?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a true story.
Indian art has that kind of power?
Yeah, I have a friend who's on the maintenance crew at the Museum of the American Indian. And, you know, she has to clean up and dust and vacuum all along and all around these artifacts. And she says things are happening to her all the time. There's a particular place in the museum where she says she's always hearing people saying, "Get out! Run, Bernice!" you know, and things like that. But our opinion is that it's probably white people and not Indian people, since they're stomping around and slamming doors. And the place where the Indian Museum is now was also the customs house for a long time. But I hear there was some dolls Kachina dolls in particular that were blamed for some plane crashes in Washington. Apparently the Smithsonian opened them up, from their packing, and they weren't particularly careful about how or who did it, and they got out, and apparently there was a lot of disasters that weekend. Anyway, the museums are hopefully being more careful about who unpacks the stuff and where it goes to, and returning a lot of things that should be back with the people who created them. Oh, I was telling my daughter about how our family is very old, generations and generations, and we could trace our ancestors back so long it takes 3.5 days to say all the names of all the people that were our grandparents, and that. You get that far back, the names are like grunts. I was joking there. Used to tell me stories of levitation. Levitation used to be pretty common, I gather. It was not considered particularly unusual. It was like a talent, like being able to do nice quill work or make moccasins, or hunt well. In fact, the people who could levitate were considered good hunters because they could, I'm Anishinaabe are forest people, so they had to give above the tree line to see where the game was. And that's how, they were good hunters, because they could go up there and say, oh yeah, there they are, the deer are over there. But I think it was a lot more common, and is a lot more common.
Susan Young.
Yeah.
Huh.
Meaning,
Videographer,
photographer.
poet, and photographer extraordinaire.
Ah, excellent.
World traveler.
World traveler.
Where?
Philippines, China twice, India twice, Nepal, Europe, sometimes once.
Troublemaker.
Yeah, you think it's trouble.
Yeah.
You think it's trouble. World
But the
peace.
good kind of trouble.
World
right?
peace, yeah.
Yeah, she works for
World peace.
Uh-huh. How do you do that?
I don't know, scream your head off and tell them who's the bad guy.
Yeah. Does it work?
No, because they throw you out. They throw you out. Everywhere.
Where have you been thrown out of?
everywhere.
Name a few.
Oh God, man! Chinatown community, Japanese community. So far, not at the stoop. Everybody else runs out.
Uh-huh.
They're woman. Do you need earphones or something? Child, mother, woman. We sit in our kitchen, painted orange, and call it cooking in a pumpkin. We laugh, bringing comfort to our cooking. Cut the vegetables and you saute the meat. I, child woman, listen to your motherly ways. You, singing and swinging your hips to John Lucien, say, bring the salt, the soy sauce, more bay leaves, taste this. We wait for the soup to simmer and cut thin slices of frozen beef. Chopsticks in hand, we dip them into soy sauce and slowly chew the sinews. You talk of mango trees in Hawaii, and I of the peaches grown in Oregon's backyards. Thus we sit in New York's Lower East Side at the end of Little Italy in our pumpkin kitchen, our distances forgotten. Oh, drug dying. Not quickly as Jimmy or Joplin, who disappeared too fast gyrating on stage. Take it and do a slow drug dying with a bit at a time. Tranquilizers to go to sleep at night, and tender would it be. Take Quaaludes to wake up and speed to pass the day. Run to an office that keeps demanding a good day's work with profits to feed the kids by. Slow drug dying, fusing out of the pores. Skin touching air so refined that it'll slide straight down to your toes. One more time, slow drug dying. With time it'll all pass, and with ashes thrown to the wind, and in the cold ocean, fires and passions that can be all spent with one more drug to have a slow, slow dying. So indulge once in a while. Subdue the violence that irks in us all, one more slow drug dying, and be the victim robbed in the soulless, soundless subway station for a welfare check, uncashed, unconscious of of not knowing whatever had hit your state of emptiness, state of stupor, state of deep, deep sleep. What? Oh, yeah, Leatherman. Okay. Now, of the Unbearables, I've been participating with their readings around the city, and also we do gathering of poetry. And so I submitted this piece, which is 2 photographs merged with 3 nuns sewing, and there's a factory spewing yellow smoke in China. So it's about global warming. And the piece is called Looking Forward and Being Backward. In China, there are 1.2 billion third world people emitting methane gases. A whole population making nuclear waste by drowning the Guilin Mountains on the Yellow River. We first world people give economic sanctions so that 1.2 billion can have cars, stereos, TVs, cameras, clothes, sneakers, refrigerators, air conditioners, cosmetics, and more products. Do you see this 1993 photograph spewing yellow smoke from a sulfur factory outside the city of Langzhou? I heard the tour guide say, "Do not worry, the wind blows west and the city is on the east side, so the city has no pollution problem." What about the ozone layer? I screamed. In 1997, I am writing about this photograph. That's it. Well, when Hemingway was...
So were you there for the revolution in China?
Which one? The massacre? No, I missed that
Whichever one you want.
No, I always tend to go, but I wind up going to places. If I go to these foreign countries, 2 years later, there's always some all of a sudden it's on front page news. Like the Philippines, or
Open minds.
The Marcos dictatorship, and
Crazy.
yeah, but I mean, you know, expectation of like bloodshed. I didn't see it when I was there. It was a peaceful march demonstration and all that.
Well,
So. I participated. When you walk and you take photographs. Yeah.
And you speak, you chant?
Oh, I talked with the peasants. And I was very surprised that they were very well educated and well informed and interested in, of course, changing their social class status and help develop and process their own countries into productive activities, you know, and be participant of the international trade. But now we have this sort of economic demise going on, that all of a sudden Asian countries, after all the hard work that they did to structure their country, it's now in economic strife of the IMF, due to the IMF strife or indebtedness for something that Western capitalism has imposed on such small countries. Battered woman and mad monks.
Battered woman and mad monks.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's being rejected.
It's being rejected?
Well, with the unbearables, because it deals with women in nunneries, Buddhist nuns, and there are a lot of educational problems with the monks. You know, I found out that nuns, they are unmarried women, and in a Buddhist culture, if they're unmarried, they have to work with the family, 9 to 5, work in the fields, prepare the family's meals, do everything on the farm, and raise the children. That's not theirs, but their nephews and nieces. And then by 6 o'clock they could go to their monastery, and then they have to build the monastery, you know, with anything that's given to them, which, you know, it's very impoverished. And then they can learn their spiritual text and get spiritually educated. So it's very feudalistic in that.
Chinese monks or Thailand, Tibet? Do they do the butter ritual?
Yeah, well, the monks do that. I mean, the monks in these areas become you know, their monasteries are well built, they're well maintained, well fed, and they distribute the edicts of the land. You might, you know, maintain whatever literature that there's the text that's kept in the monasteries and so on.
And you met them?
Yeah, I participated in the Women's Buddhist Conference, which is called Sakadita, and every 2 years they go into various troubled areas and support the local woman Buddhists, because at Sakadita it was a pretty large movement, then slowly it dwindled because women aren't allowed to be educated in a way. They're from medieval period into modern period.
Isn't there a thing in Buddhism that says to attain enlightenment you must be reborn again as a man?
Oh, is that so? No wonder it's so patriarchic. But I thought Buddhism was a matriarch society.
Why?
Because they're always like, you know, the mother is the essential keeper of whatever, nurturing and nourishment, and there are goddesses, you know, or deities that they have.
Divas. We're talking Indian? Yes, go ahead. A diva just walked by. A young diva. All right, there you are.
Well, I mean, you know, that they're honored. And there's a certain level of respect with the woman that I was surprised that even the Buddhist men would work in the kitchen and help out and everything. Everything was shared.
Right.
But with modernization imposing, the differences are becoming stratified. The local people have to lock their doors because there's such things as robberies happening. In North India, Ladakh, where I visited, they had that conference there.
You were in Nepal too.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the honesty of the people. I almost had a Leica camera stolen by a Sikh military guy, and one Buddhist person like said, well, so and so has it, and I had to approach that person and say, do you have my camera? Of course, he had to bring out his, from his pocket. There's your. Is this yours? We're looking for you. Yeah, sure. But so this piece I've written, like John would say, it might cause trouble anyway. I saw their arguments and traumas of broken families confronted in poor middle-income housing projects. Even the holy white middle class has no cures for rectified remedies. Child of the streets differs from her classmates to see a mother's bruised face inflicted by a father. Now you want to believe in Jesus, and when he died, the world listened. When she died, the world turned its back. It's not the same to be Asian light. Followed their own chosen male leader's norm. She traveled and met mad monks in monasteries. They opened the door with kind faces and untouched, cherished bodies as untouched by woman. And now her hands has no interest not to touch. Mad monks laughing always as the camera's eye follows his holiness down his garden path. The bruised, battered Tibetan nuns are in a category of their own. Sad to think that he has no time to work in his garden. Because a lot of nuns in China are escaping from Tibet because the Chinese are treating them very badly. And then there's not enough accommodations in Dharamsala for a lot of nuns and blah, 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 blah.
You're dealing with a culture that is a number of thousand years old and stratified.
4,000.
4,000 until the Chinese came in, right?
Yeah. And destroyed 600 monasteries. And now they're trying to rebuild them.
So what do you think of that? From this vantage point, from the vantage point of the woman monks, female monks, and their treatment for 4,000 years has been accepted. And in comes modern China. And modern China is not chauvinistic.
Well, they are. I find that they are.
But not as much as...
well, one of the socialism did alleviate 1 billion people's struggles for various things. They benefit the senior citizens because they can socialistically they can get their clothes sheltered. The government's obliged to give them the shelters they need, the clothing and the food. And it comes down to, I think, well, the dissatisfaction of the students, their experience. That's when the Tiananmen Square occurred. And they were dissatisfied. I mean, they found out that, even though there were like barbarianism that was still practiced under communist rule. When Mao said one thing and they did it, and then it destroyed the crops. When they destroyed first they had all these birds to destroy all the insects, and then they destroyed all the birds, and then all the crops became destroyed, I think, by the insects again, or something like that. Yeah. And there was starvation happening in various areas. And when
that was a great leap forward, no?
Yeah, and when they drew all their steel pots and pans to make factories or something like that,
right?
Other problems developed, I suppose. but
So they tore down their 5,000 year culture,
yeah,
which was a disaster for women because women were lower than
well, okay, so the women were able to, after that, they used the woman as a working force. So now women are working together with the men, but I still feel like there are, you know, there's still problems. Let me try this piece called Woman on Broadway. A woman screams on Broadway, carrying the empty baby's chair. The cop car's coming and people watching. A black woman, she screams in anguish. She looking at the man, her face in contortions, twisted and screaming, pointing at him. I'm gonna kill him. One man hollering, come here, get in the taxi. She stands, then bends and opens her mouth in anguish. No sound is emitted, but she feels, oh, how it hurts to see that empty toddler's chair held in her hand. Oh, how it hurts to feel the needle in the womb and extract premature flesh. How I feel. The tears roll round the curve of my bones, and hollow is the womb. Changed. Your paved streets of neon lights paint your new buildings, sparkling the dark alleyways as old buildings fall. Street urchins dressed in ski jackets, black hair bobbed and permed, made up pretty girls in skin-tight jeans, boys flopping legs, glancing sideways, and holding hands with their white dreams. Never again are red and yellow banners held on Mott Street. No more shouts of racism must go, more jobs for the Chinese. Only the echoes of the waiters' dishes with clashing mahjong tiles and buzzing of the sewing machines, threading our strengths to the past, just holding our past. No, well, you know, you could follow the news and hear what goes on and how that became what it became. And
I was at Newark riots, among others.
Newark riots.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
March on Cicero.
Wow.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Up riots.
Wow. I went to the Boston sort of rally for education, but you know, what'd that do? You go to D.C., marches, what did that do?
You do something.
I did something, you know.
Which D.C. march did you go to?
Well, it was the Vietnam March, you know.
You were there for the Vietnam March?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I went as a participant, but nothing to observe, nothing to like be active in it.
Did you stand in front of the Pentagon?
No, wound up like not doing anything, just have a meal. So like, well, I guess this boyfriend was ready to go to the military, and so I said, well, let's go join, and I feel sympathy for you. So I did what I did for my country.
So you have a past then?
Well, yeah.
You know,
A past? You mean one of those, what past?
You have a past. You have been part of the revolution that happened in this country.
I was conscious of it. We were all conscious of it. But now I guess, you know, it's phasing out that consciousness. You can't even get a newspaper can't get a newspaper now to like, you know. Well,
so write your own, make your own newspapers.
Well, yes, we shall see. That's another. The computer is in hock, as in hostage, until I behave correctly, and then I can get my computer back, I suppose is one thing. But that's a whole conspiracy too.
Why?
I mean, for one man to control a whole system that everybody has become dependent upon, and if you don't do following instructions to the T max, your computer will not work. My father Japanese, my heritage Asian American, Sansei, me, third generation. My grandparents Issei or Yatsei, immigrants to the U.S., first generation. My grandfather on my mother's side was a laundryman in Yonkers. He ironed, washed, folded, and wrapped white men's clothes, dazzling white shirts, starched collars, and cuffs. My grandmother on my mother's side was in China and then Hong Kong. She worked the farm, raised the pigs, waiting for his money, and bore her husband only and seeing her husband only 6 times. Each visit cherished with a child, and each child knowing that America was Gold Mountain called Gum Sai. My grandfather on my father's side left Japan, came to America, and worked along the coastline. A migrant worker who harvested the fruits, fished for salmon, trimmed the acres of lawns, and cooked at makeshift diners. Saving for his mail-ordered bride in 8 years, 18 and young, she arrived, hanging her purple kimono in mothballs, imported to follow his trails of sweet labor. Then a farm was bought, and a son learned to sweat for the land. Camps in World War II brought him to the Western Front, while his parents were incarcerated into camp. My mother came to America and joined grandfather in the laundry. She worked and married father, fresh out of service. I grew up feeling not Chinese and not Japanese. I grew up in an insulated melting pot called Americanization. In the 50s, I was taught brotherhood, the kind that children could laugh, sing, and be merry. In the 60s, it was the Vietnam War, where men fought and women and children died of the pain. And in the 70s, it was organizing Chinatown with more jobs for Chinese, racism must go, and vote for your rights. With this, I learned why the elders are bitter, why he must leave his wife and work overseas for 40 years while she keeps his family thousands of miles away. And I see why their faces are locked, hiding the shame of imprisonment in camps, living in horse stalls per family, while their possessions were forsaken to Jap-hating neighbors. Maybe all this is gone in history, but still the legacy on their stony faces, marbleized in their minds. I see their gangs, their hopes built in me. Their memories recalled from cubicles, twisted thoughts of fears, hatreds, and angers that held their silences, trading this vacuum in me, their history, to hold on to the past as a struggling Asian American and never to forget. God, look at the city bank. You can see right there. Is that purposely put there? On the right of the United Nations. Looking forward and being backward. In China, there are 1.2 billion third world people.
Oh, this one is better. Look at it, turn around.
Actually, that's nice.
Yes.
It looks Mandarin.
Yeah.
It does look Mandarin.
Oh, yeah. It's romantic. But your outfit doesn't fit my hat.
You don't.
I know.
Because I am complete. lady, you
She,
know.
no, but the thing is, she wanted to appear.
It's a family that gave me this in North India.
Oh, okay then.
I mean,
They might appreciate it then.
Yeah, so promoting the whole.
I'll keep my mother,
You know,
whatever
Tintin.
you say.
That was my little adventure in North India.
No, but she wanted to appear
Pakistan.
as a revolutionary, so she came
Oh, that's
dressed.
yes, I
Right?
forgot.
That was
But
the
not
look.
in my costume.
I know.
I don't like to appear as a revolutionary, you know.
No, I go for.
I like it. I'm more a reactionary.
I go
than-
for small people's issues and causes.
Small people's issues.
And causes?
Well, little, I mean, the small issues that become big issues, you know, eventually they do, right?
Right.
I mean, you know.
Or she means
I guess now-
she predict them before they become too big, when
Ooh.
they end up being big. And when nobody listened to her, when she told them it's gonna happen. You see?
I always tell people, you know, during the past 2 years, although less now, I've spent a lot of time at 42nd Street. And just today in the paper, there was an article about how one of my frequent haunts, Playpen, had been raided and for prostitution and for all the Czechoslovakian girls, which I've written about, and the guys from Sri Lanka, which I've written about. Were rounded up. So I went in to sort of, and of course it was business as usual. It's Friday afternoon, it's crazy, wow. It's as if nothing has ever happened, you know. And I said to Billy, who's the MC, and he's really like kind of a guardian angel genius who works in this place. And I said, and he said, you know, hands me out the money. It's Friday. And I said, well, you know, I mean, it doesn't look like it had any effect. He said, oh, please, SOS. He said, what do I care? You know, I'm an American citizen. And, Mustafa, as I leave, says, oh, wow! So these are two pieces from, one is Peep World 1, which is in the latest issue of A Long Shot, and the other is, I wrote a long series called What is Love, and this is What is Love 1. So, Monique is naked and big, phony red dread, shaved pubic hair. What do you do, I say, if you want to get a guy out fast? Legs, splaying, the universe, pushing pussy in my face. She starts rubbing, whoa, I say, stop, please. What else? Let him suck my titties, shake my ass. The window comes down at Peep World. Transaction time, 60 seconds, cost $6, $5 for her, $1 for the house. As I leave, old man in front, face glued to box video. Blacks and Blondes, starring Kayla, K-A-Y-L-A, Cleavage, K-L-E-A-V-A-G-E, still eating bean soup from blue paper cup. What is love, Billy, I say? We are at Playpen girls parading plumed and feathered birds of paradise. Billy slamming down tokens, fistfuls of peppermints, Friday rush hour, high fives and kisses from dancers to frequent customers. in this semi-naked arena. What is love, Billy, I say, and he puts it on the mic. Being one with the one you desire. You could walk in on your hands and knees. I'd throw my arms around you. Give you a big kiss and hug, say, that's my baby. Other people wouldn't understand, but I do. What is love, I say to Dylan, the cop on the corner, the redhead cop on the corner, like parent with child, like church says, come hell or high water. What is love, I say to Candy, the TV he has just chased, the one with the terrible face job, awful jaw stubble. I guess this is her corner, caring for me. Not what I do, this is my job, she says, desperation leaking from running mascara, caring not about what I do, but for who I am. What is love, I say to the Romanian taxi driver? What makes me the strongest fighter in the world? What is love, I say to my friend Nancy, wet underpants? What is love, I say to Bob? First warm day of spring, coffee cup in hand, looking up, he says, constant sunlight. What is love, I say at night to my man on the phone, and he says, everything. Yes, because love is all about, breaking down the barricades. Love and poetry and everything in life that feels both painful and good, which is what this holiday is all about, which was invented to torture women.
Where did those arrows come from, Jill?
What, huh? What was the question, John?
How did the arrows fit into it? That's what I was...
Jill, how did the arrows fit into it? What arrows?
I mean arrows.
Cupid's arrows? What arrows? The slings and arrows of outrageous, I don't know, Iraq. Or guys did, whatever.
I said arrows.
Whatever. As I say, witty and quick is at home. I'm here. All right.
Wonderful electric Eve Packer.
And that made my Valentine's Day. This was once a gift on Valentine's Day. I think this was 2 Valentine's Day. Today I got zip. Not one phone call, not one rose petal, not one like little lace doily corner or edge. But the night's still young, and there are many rooms filled with love, and this is sure one of them. So thank you, and thank Larry Jones, and thank everybody for being here. And this is called February 14 Lines. Once I told you, my pussy is an intrinsic part of my soul. This time, you mugged my heart, by which I mean my cunt, by saying what you said to her so I could hear, and then staying out when you were staying in my house, which is vagina, home, self. Thank you.
East from 8th and 42nd to 42nd and 7th, large. Post-mod Dwayne Reed under Port Authority, piles of debris, wood on top of what was KFC Halal Indo-Pac Curry to go stores, boarded up in red and blue steel shutters. 42nd Street Development Project, stenciled on street banners and flags, awning proclaiming in red lavender the new 42nd Street colors. Lion King marquee flashing yellow light in prep for pre-Christmas opening. New Victoria, late 19th century jewel box theater, now pristine pretty for kiddie families on Northwest corner, where Optimo, smoke shop, phone safe, haven for every junkie, score, and cop, hustler, once was, now stands firm. Ferrara, home of cannoli and other confections since 1898, across on downtown side, showpiece de resistance, gooey rich, all conquering Mighty Mouse, who rules makeover Gotham, recently arrived and here to clean up. MICKEYMOUSE Disney Store.
I wrap my mouth around your heart. If you cut me off at the time, Playland. It was called Playland. Hector Valentine took me there. Well, I guess I was about 14. Hector Valentine used to sit in the back of math class and throw spitballs. You know, he was tall and thin. I just thought it was cool. Anyway, he took me to Playland. I don't remember a thing, except we got pizza and I vomited in the gutter. Well, I mean, you just didn't go to 42nd Street. There were whores and pimps and thieves and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you didn't even dare look at the neon just for what it might be saying. Well, a little later, in the spring probably, Kurt, who was black, so I couldn't take him home, and he certainly wasn't going to take me home. We used to go to the movie houses. They must have been $2 or less. No. They must have been $1 or less. No, they must have been $1. And sit up in the last row of the balcony and make out, because where else were we going to make out? I think we were totally oblivious to all the other activities around us, and they were probably totally oblivious to us. Before I see 42nd, you know, I was in college, I was in Europe, and then when I came back, I got to be an actress. And you just live at 42nd Street. I mean, I used to think it was so strange. Here you are in this quote, unquote, respectable profession. I guess you can see its roots for women, especially for women. Arnhordam, because that's the district. So there you are on your way to your audition, going through those streets in the West 50s, but first you gotta go through the West 40s, probably on the way to the subway. So you squinch yourself up, sort of like a mini horse with blinders to make your field of vision real tiny so you don't see all those secret shame marquees, and also so no one will see or hit on you before you manage to get downstairs, toss your token in the slot, ride home and say, oh no, that place doesn't exist. Oh no, my life has nothing to do with 42nd. Playland. It was called Playland. This is called number 36. Gotta imagine a whole bunch of drums or something. Police knocking, and we just in the door. Police knocking. Fortunately, the door is just this sec shut. We are not yet in flagrante, but fully clothed. Tuned into what I'll later tag our song, The Weather Station, number 36. 904 or 902 says the short, fat, mustache piglet when you open up report of domestic violence, and we are just the prime suspects he is in search of. Nicole and OJ, but Minnie, and much cuter and smarter. I'm an artist, officer. You say, oh, he says, must be the other room. We can hear voices. She's hiding in the stairwell. Sounds of tense confab. Handcuffs. This part's unclear. Before the footsteps have passed, we're at it. Mutual consent. I remember you said in the street, I thought you were nuts. But see why? Well, yeah. I'll consent to this. Anytime. Any place. Any universe or niche. Day or night. Quantum leap. Rolling. Typhoon. Steaming. Thunder. Monsoon and tidal wave. Lightning bolt flash. It's a hit. Asleep. In arms. Unarmed. I hear in hall sound of leg, metal stump, Captain Hook, Phantom of Sid and Nancy. What? Rapping and tapping, up and down. What grade B horror flick creature is here? Fortunately, you put a chair in front of the door. How illogical. It's locked, I think, if you can call it thinking. Breathing. Free. So far gone. Easy. He's whispering in my ear, in a language, words, syllables, sounds, I hear, but don't understand, but I do. And he's got an Indio face. He's about 17, maybe. A wood Indio face. And he's pouring words down my ear. Have some around, he says, handing over a brown paper bag. We're sitting on the front steps. I've just finished fucking, saying goodnight to my boyfriend, an extraordinary artist. These drawings are all over my walls. I have that effect on them. Come on, he says, taking me down the road. It's a night with electricity. I know, because the posada is open. He takes me down the road through a field. There are long, wild reeds. First it's dark, then we have the moon. And he's talking, 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 down my ear. No one has ever talked down my pores like this. Wood demon from a lost world, kissing dark at the road and at the posada, but you can't see it, the posada by the sea. All you can see is the painted mural by the door and the bulletin board with reglas para los compañeros, para limpiarlo, and a room with one big bed, wood headboard, tile floor, fan on ceiling, sink, toilet, and we throw off what there is of our clothes and come kissing dark in the road. We throw off what there is of our clothes and come.
Against
What do you think poetry is?
I wouldn't have a clue what it's from. I don't know. It's an accident that comes through you and perches on your shoulder, or comes out of your groin. Or I don't know. It's something. I don't know. It's a moment. It's something lucky, fortunate that happens to you. I don't know what it is.
What do you think is poetry's use in society?
It has no use. That's why it's wonderful. Except that it takes you to that other place. It comes from that other place, it takes you to that other place, and it goes to that other place. Like music, or sex, or swimming, or beautiful cat.
Or a beautiful woman?
Now we'll have Helen.
This be part 3 of the power lines. It be about a friend of mine. Went back to shake hands with the dead, ended up spitting at them instead. The years wore on, characterized on my part by an implacable, unprotractable silence. Them showing up at the door for the first time thought I was a deaf mute. She's a good one, they'd say, and smack me on the rump. My silence was a form of submission, perhaps, but not surrender, for it transformed my soul into an abattoir, an auditorium of sorts in which I'd be forced to bear witness to the endless succession of ordeals and debacles, funded by cruelty and ratified by injustice. I was incapable of responding, for anything I might say or do to intervene was considered a far more punishable offense than the crimes I bore witness to. And so the rage accrued, until at last I could no longer endure it. Sacrifices must be made for atrocities to continue. Jamie, I could have been you. back and forth with that same old stare. The men come from their hunt, they set down their guns. Boys will do as boys will. They beat him into an imbecile. Now they pat him on the back and he manages to cough up a laugh. The day I left, all the phantoms from the neighborhood gathered and stood along that dirt road in them woods. Women with rumpled aprons and crumpled up noses. Men fondling their belt buckles with superior poses. There was no laurel thrown at my feet, no cheers, just unkind accusations, whispers and sneers. Ungrateful wretch, many chided. You'll get what's coming to you, others derided. And if I listened to what they had to say, I would have went running back, pled forgiveness from Thelma to let me stay. But she watched from the window as I made my way toward the unspoken promise of the unknown. And I'd like to think a tear fell from her eye into the crust she'd be rolling for a cherry pie, and that for an instant her heart opened and it hurt a little, but only for an instant, like the aperture of a camera lens, opening and shutting again. There now, that didn't hurt too much, did it? I stand at the station in my Sunday finest. No explanation of what remains behind us. No more hidden dangers of tempers on rations. Just the comfort of strangers with mercy and compassion. And then the train pulled into the station and I hurried and took a seat as fast as I could so as not to draw attention to myself. And there were women with hat boxes and men reading newspapers with pocket watches, and it all seemed so strange and so unfamiliar. But I still don't understand. I can only have faith in God's plans. But Jamie, you could have played the violin. But you rock back and forth complacently while I'm tormented by the memories. I guess that'd be where the mystery of God's workings begins. There was a gust of steam and the train pulled out of the station and a kind old gentleman in a blue uniform appeared at my seat and said, "Ticket, ma'am?" "Ma'am." He called me ma'am. "Yes, sir." And the power lines began to unreel through the compartment window, slowly at first and then in rapid succession. And I watched the birds swoop down and arrange themselves like notes of a symphonic score. It'd be music. And as the sun went down, I began to see my reflection superimposed upon them power lines. And I realized that except for the dull glint and glimmer at the bottom of a pot I'd be scrubbing, it'd be the first lucid reflection I had of myself. So when you be in your car next time, look out and see them power lines. Think of me. Think of me. My story's part of our great ancestry. For those that missed part 1 and part 2, it's about a young girl's courage to rat on an abusive foster family in the mid-50s. But in those days, they got rid of the complainer and got rid of the complaint. A lot of people did Rosa Parks and just got sent to a new library of the Olympics.
Okay. All right, thank you, Helen.
About my grandmother who's dead, and it's called To Grandma's House. Everybody tells me that there will be a time when I'll want to write about the past, and I believe that that's what I would do. And I thought that the time would be close to the time she died, where she lay draped under 3 white silk blankets in the almost empty funeral parlor on Mulberry Street. I didn't know that I did my best telling while walking down Sundays down 18th Street in Midwood, Brooklyn, across Letter Avenues toward the sea to visit my mother and my father. Sometimes my mother says, what sort of woman would leave her child and remarry like she was some slut who couldn't get enough even in an emergency? There were nights that I couldn't sleep, but I never thought once about her even after she was dead and buried. And it's just fitting that there was no one else in the funeral parlor except us, her daughter's family, who didn't treat her like she was alive even before she died. And I think the gods were too cruel that they were heartless jokesters when they named her Happiness of the Yellow Moon, like there was a thread of hope for her, sold like a spoon at 9, and didn't even know who her parents were when she was born. And I guess that it must suck to be indentured for life, a maid cleaning up everyone's mess, wiping everyone's ass. The gods must have chuckled, bowled over with mirth when they heard her masters call her Moon's Happiness, summoned her to beat the sheets, scrub the outhouse, lick the floors. And I've no doubt that they were slap happy when their adopted son proposed to this illiterate girl, knowing she only knew how to say, yes, I'll do it. And I'm sure that this would never have been allowed if the young master was not only bought to fill the patrilineal void, and his value dropped when he fell for the pantry maid. And I'm convinced that the young master was once in love with Happiness before they threw him out. And like Mary and Joseph, they cut up from Canton to Shanghai by foot in search of real family, and instead meant nothing but a 7th-month miscarriage and hunger, and eventually slunk back after his not real parents begged him to come back to resume the family name. And that's what my mother thinks even to this day, with Happiness dead and gone. To this day, she'll say, only if she's slow in the head or she's a born slut will she abandon her only child to marry another man. But I think there's another story simpler and more basic, that sometimes there can't be more than one survivor in one place. And I'll always remember that story about the night during the war when no food was left and my mother was too hungry and couldn't sleep, so her mother had to search long and hard to finally come up with a fistful of dough that she boiled up, and she didn't have any of it but let my mother eat it all, and after that she finally fell asleep. And I'm baffled that my mother loved her father more and forgot that he left his family when she was 5 and only saw him 26 years later when he had been shacked up with another woman for 10 years. And I'm sorry that she couldn't tell anyone, couldn't explain what anyone else would do in a second, that there was starvation and war, and maybe if she married this other man with a mansion, she could save her child later. She couldn't know that she was also a trollop in her new husband's eyes, especially when you consider that her first husband was alive in New York, and that once again, she was the maid who beat the laundry, dusted the scullery, wiped the assholes, and licked the outhouse. And I wish that my mother never told me how alike we were, that I reminded her of her sluttish mother all the time. I wouldn't mind if it was the slut part we had in common, but it was the dumb genes that made us too stupid to be virtuous, and that gets me sad. And I wish that instead of crossing Avenue M on 18th Street, I'm lying on my couch smoking and watching the Knicks on TV, and I don't have to sit on the couch in my mother's house and listen to her complain about my weakness and my failures. And I'm mad that I'm not like her and I don't know how to hold on to bitterness and fight back every chance I get. And I bet that Grandma was ready to kick towards the end after 9 years of reproach from a daughter who left her by the seaside and sailed off to survive, still blaming her. Or maybe it was that she was really dumb and didn't know better. Sometimes I'm too stupid to be generous too. What was it she couldn't say when she tried to eat the laundry detergent or ran away to Avenue T? And what was it that kept her lying on the couch for 9 years, watching morning, daytime, and night TV, and not moving, even when my mother carped about her sloth and stupidity? But like the shrinking man, she was disappearing from atrophy and surrender, fading into a whole world's darkness, molecule by molecule. Once I told a girl that my grandmother died. She said, well, she lived a good life. No, I said, no she didn't, and that's why I'm glad she's dead. But I don't believe that she's completely dead because I think of her every time I walk down 18th Street to Avenue R, where inside I still see all 4 feet of her, bent like a hard, dark comma against the curved end of the couch. Her farm black toenails curling outward like an Arabian shoe. And I still have that small photo of her in 1950, where she looked a little simian, but mostly baffled. And if she could speak, would probably say, "What am I doing here? This world is no place for me." I suppose I imagined that because she never said a word to any of us on that couch, even when her daughter got the vendetta in her sometimes and counted the way she failed as a mother and a woman. And I remember that I didn't cry in her funeral until the last minute when we were leaving in the car, and I saw the first shovel of dirt fall across the coffin, and I was hit hard by sadness for her pointless life. And it was then that I wept and wondered, what's the use of a life like that or any other? And maybe she was a joke that God's made up to pass the time, like I'm doing now, walking across Kings Highway to Avenue R, to the house where she lay on the far end of the couch like she was practicing for the coffin. And I know now that I should have written to her like my mother asked 30 years ago, but I was too young and I didn't want to write to a stranger in a photograph. And I didn't remember that she took care of me until we left her all alone, and she had to face a communist who made her confess her sins on a weekly basis and made her tell about how much she enjoyed the wealth and indolence of the rich. And I don't think that she was stupid enough to contradict them and tell the truth about how she was treated like shit and no one loved her all her life. And it astounded me that this illiterate, dumb peasant dragged her red flat suitcase, got on the boat from China to Hong Kong, and made her way to the airport to take the plane to New York. Only she couldn't escape her daughter's wrath and sat in the little brick house on Avenue R and waited like a stone. And it pissed me off that my mother called her an idiot, like she wasn't there when the police came and took away her 16-year-old brother and shot him on a holiday eve because he robbed a piece of meat. It was just another story that happiness couldn't tell. And maybe her karma was bad enough that the gods thought she deserved what was coming to her. And I hope that in her next life, she'll know who she is and be adored by mother, father, sisters, brothers, lovers, husbands, teachers, that she'll be wrapped in silks and linen, adorned in jade and rubies, nourished by champagne and honey. And as I cross the light and walk up to the door, I know that I'm here at her house, and I hope that she's free from us now, and someday I'll say that my grandmother was someone who lived in war and died in peace, and it wasn't funny, and the gods were wrong. Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to share with you a couple of things my mama told me about meeting men. Nice men. Eloise, sit down, please. I want to talk to you. Eloise, and cross your knees and pull your skirt down. You're getting to be grown now. You know, you can't be leaving your legs uncrossed, letting everything show. Now, Eloise, you're getting to be a young lady, and the time is coming when... Look at your ashy skin. And look at your dirty little knobby knees. You should put some lotion on that skin. And are you missing a button off your blouse? Is that how you was about to go out of the house? Eloise, you're getting to be a young lady now, and you're gonna want to start meeting some young men. And you gotta be nice and neat, and if it's young, nice men you want to meet. Now, you're getting grown. You're going to want to be on your own. You're going to want to start to date. So there's a couple of things I got to tell you about meeting young men before it's too late. Now, when you're getting ready to go out to a nice party to meet some nice young men, it's best that you bring along like another respectable female friend. Yeah, and when you're going to this nice party to maybe meet some nice young men, make sure that you better make sure that you pick out a nice one to talk to. He don't have to be handsome, just that he's nice and clean. I mean, and you haven't seen him hanging on the corner drinking beer all day. I mean, he's gotta be nice in some sort of way. Maybe he goes to church, sure, keeps a job. And this party, when you go to, make sure you bring along a female friend too, but make sure that she isn't in some way, you know, prettier than you. When you're going to a party to meet some nice young men. And don't the two of you go out of here with your skirts too short, riding up too high on your thighs, showing off your stuff for everybody's eyes. And don't get on the dance floor and start twisting around your clothes too tight and laughing and giggling and not acting right. Because I done raised you. And I'm not going grandchildren with no daddy too.
It's a poem called The Blood Won't Clot. Mental penitentiaries breed bloodshed, so thick we can't see our time fleeing. Racist hemophiliacs bleed venom from pickup trucks, billy clubs, white sheets stained red like beds of slaves. After masters' clandestine encounters, scattered bastards left unclaimed. White sheets stained red, stained red, stained red. White stained red like dye of strange, fruit crushed under pillars of communities who hide sheets and shotguns in their closets. Crosses ignite, red, eyes under white hoods watch. Our watch is ticking, we don't hear. Open sores, searing, bearing band-aids instead of balm. Left to fester, rancid, blood perpetually drops. The wounds won't heal because the blood won't clot. Sickle-celled centuries of mental penitentiaries breed bloodshed, breed sedentary asses, breed bloodshed, breed sedentary asses, while Fortune 500 fascists sit in boardrooms and plot destinies.
Brothers on the same page. Malcolm X and Pedro Albizu Campos sharing a page on a book, sitting waiting for the penetration into the hearts of the free. Imprisoned by time and circumstance, but free. Tormented by those around, so pain-driven, so in need, stakes of the free. Topics given time for debate, someone they are not ready to relate. One disconnected energy in the room creates hate. Imbalanced thoughts fall on one side or another, losing the true meaning of the word brother. Fortune ties stronger than ignorance, filled with arrogance of significant means. With all those whose power they came to share, information with their people who need to care. Flags raised individually brings pride, but represented nations reflect tribes. This one is called Drug Contradiction. Drugs created by influences, creating an imposed contradiction within a culture. The very plague that has killed hundreds of thousands has also allowed others from the same communities the accessibility to food and shelter. See, with no education, no real chance to earnings, options become two. Either you survive with what you have accessible to live or fail, period. Now, how do we heal that? That's the dialogue needed. And this one, I'm gonna read two more. This one is a little different. This is story part one, a quick peek in the mirror. Creeping into my cipher, ones that have come through, engage in my energy, pull from it, drink from it, eat from it, all entering at their own risk with their own tricks, breaking down my vision, keeping me confused, making me break all the rules. Gemini talent, now you see me again with a new outfit, maybe a new friend. Me, Brooklyn originated, Boricua claim, no issues and fame, just making a name for my people through song. Caribbean queen steps on the scene, the Boricua nation gets representation. Hoping I'm just one of the many ladies coming through with their heads up like Pac said, sending his love forces whether or not he's dead. Yellow meets red. Together you know we scare the shit out of the feds. Prim and proper I was taught to be, but mommy didn't mention my hard knock life would create a split personality. Williamsburg, Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene, East New York, all parts of my history. Bloodshed, family left for dead, 100 years of brutality to my people make me feel like we're not equal. Brethren can relate to hate, keeping us playing our nation by connecting with another or living the lives of our oppressors. We need to shout from the boogie down to Medina. Our nation can and has represented with comrades, with pride, with power, with honor, with universal laws. 99. Okay, and I'm going to close with Dimension Seed from family stories of thoughts they had that died before they were born. Creating Big Bang funk and Judgment Day of protesting generations of all colors of the sun. chanting history with abstract words, erasing lines of suave embraces to carry any or all traces of the time now here to display, burning oil in lamps, popping lingo of trains of thought, putting freedom fighting to the test of defining freedom, rolling film of yesteryear and yesterday on one clip, making sense of tribal beats that burn the only soul you know, spinning with the salsa, dancing in the wastelands, climbing the ladder of perfection to the lost horizon, enjoying roots of a few lives, back exposing pyramids and writings not quite understood, erupting into cyberspace, island pride so sincere, cocktails available to all through breasts of women who fall, deep into their African Taino touch, into their arroz con gandule thighs and universal eyes. Thank you.
Do that too. And we're going to start off with Shanti. Yeehaw! Never heard of a white girl named Shanti. People fucking crazy, man. Alright, don't judge me by its color. If only I could be free. Let go. Seek beginner's mind. Begin anew. Each day, each moment, like nothing came before. Do not watch the world go by in passive wonder. Dive into the ocean of the unknown. I am not this culture, but I am of it. What delicate operation to extract true nature from the carnage of this twisted, limited paradigm. When paralyzed by past mistakes or future indecision, step off the path, create a new direction. When I'm ready, I'll decide. I'll go and do when I'm ready. So, begin. It's so difficult to be uninspired. Impossible to expand beyond this paradigm. I know it doesn't have to be this way. And I don't blame anybody. Not even myself. Because I am them. I am you, difficult ones. I am the cultural inertia. There is no right or wrong. There is only moving forward, fully or not. So ask questions, my friend, at least until you are no longer.
Will not run, we will not hide, we will not feed this fear inside. The kingdom come, will be. We shall not be silenced.
If we will not be silenced, we can stand strong against the throng, against the elitists, against those who wish to defeat us, those who wish to beat us into contrite conformity. We see the university of the free, the university of diversity, educating our collective soul to build us one, many together, to make us all one, to make us whole.